Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United of the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United, the National League, are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the midweek social. Before I do go on, I'm going to let Andy take the congratulations on that poll. And the two of the originals, it's not a midweek social, I hear.
It's not a midweek social.
It's not a midweek, but it is a midweek social. So joining me again is, I'm going to say regular guests now, Andy Kay and Claire. Hi guys, how are you?
Tired.
Very tired.
Very tired. I'm just going to ask you to just bear with me for 1 second. I am going to just read something out. As everyone who listens knows, I trip over my words when they come out of my mouth. So reading words that someone else has written is going to be difficult for me. So just give me 2 seconds. We discussed briefly last week the issues that had happened at the ground, and whilst it ruined my pod within a couple of hours because there was a discussion point in there that the club just completely wiped out, I'm not too bitter about it because they moved really quickly and just put this statement out. And I just wanted to read it, make sure no one's missed it. I'm sure no one has. Sutton United Football Club is consistently enjoying bigger crowds than ever, and we're working hard in many areas to see those numbers continue to grow. We want our stadium to be an exciting and enjoyable place to visit, but also inclusive and welcoming to everyone who visits, whether they be players, officials, supporters, but that goes for our volunteers and stewards. People at work deserve to be treated with the same level of respect at football matches as they would in all other walks of life. Some people seem to believe that you can get away with behaviour in a football stadium that's not permissible or acceptable in any other walks of life. In fact, the opposite is true. Anything banned or unacceptable on the streets is also not allowed in stadia. Indeed, there are additional specific laws and regulations that apply in and around a football stadium. We will not tolerate actions or language that injure, insult, belittle, bully, or otherwise discriminate against any individual or group of people. This specifically includes, but is not limited to, behaviours that are racist, sexist, homophobic, or discriminatory in any way. Please also remember there are many young people in the ground, so please moderate your language. It is an exciting time to be a supporter of Sutton United. We have a fantastic manager and a team delivering great performances and results at the highest level at which the club has ever competed. We all want to see the club continue to grow on and off the field. We know the vast majority of our supporters want to be part of this memorable chapter in our history. So let's make a noise, support the team and celebrate our goals, but at all times show respect for everyone else. We would encourage anyone to feel free to report any antisocial behaviour to the club, officials or stewards, who will then take appropriate action, and in hashtag in it together. As I said, swift statement. Obviously, we need it to follow through. I know there was one or two voices saying, well, this should have happened X months ago, blah, blah, blah. But I'm of the opinion they can't really deal with much until they're told about it. So people whinging on Twitter doesn't necessarily mean that the club was told about it. What were your guys' thoughts on it? I know we obviously know what happened with the steward's behaviour and the person who did report it, which, as I think I said on the forum, a lot of people were saying, oh, can come stand with us. And I felt awful because I don't like talking for other people, especially people who can talk so well for themselves. But it was like, that's not the point. The fact that she was in the wrong place is actually probably a bonus because someone heard it who said, no, I'm not having this. If she'd been in the right place, I might not have heard it. What do you guys think of the whole statement and situation? Go on, one of you go first.
I was going to say after you. No, I completely agree. I mean, I think, we've got bigger crowds and we seem to have picked up a little bit of a fraction of people who started to appear around the kind of some of the Pizza Cup fixtures and seem to have stuck around. Younger people, who presumably see things on TV that they think is acceptable, and that's what they want to kind of emulate in their supporting. I think it was very evident when we played AFC Wimbledon and they were abusing kind of Mick, and it was not what the rest of us would have wanted. As you say, it's hard for the club to make any kind of response to it if they don't necessarily see it, because we do see it, because we're there in the terraces, whereas they might be elsewhere in the ground. So I'm glad that something's been said. I'm a big believer in action rather than words. So I like to see what the follow-up will be with regards to the stewards and the impact that perhaps they could make in such a thing. And if people are behaving inappropriately, then I'd like to see them not there. And we can ban people from our ground for a reason. So if it continues, I think banning orders is something that should be followed through. And I know it's hard to implement, but I definitely think it's something we should explore. And on language, I mean, this isn't just over them. There are some chants that I absolutely hate that seem to be really starting to bed in.
Yeah.
I have to hear one more song about somebody's penis. I think I'm going to scream, irregardless of which player it is. There were a couple last night, and I just don't need to hear it.
I'll be honest, it's getting to a bit of a strange state when the three of us would be saying, well, the language needs to be a little bit moderated.
I don't know what you mean.
Andy, go on. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I said this on the forum as well. No one should have to tolerate what happened on Saturday at all. Doesn't matter who they are. They should not have to tolerate that. It was quite horrific. And the worst thing I think I found about it was, I'm not saying this is excusable, but if it was kids, you can almost understand, because they're not developed enough. They take cues from other people. They're more likely to take cues, as Claire said, from things they hear around and TV and so forth. But a lot of this stuff was coming from people like 30 or 40 years old who, have no excuse not for knowing better. And I just don't understand the mentality of it. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, maybe I'm in the minority, but I actually go to watch a football game, and occasionally I will shout something out in frustration, but more often than not, it's you're there supporting the team, and you've got these people who are there shouting abuse. You've got others who are there literally moaning for 90 minutes, as we heard last night. There was a couple of guys behind us at Bristol who. They just non-stop for 90 minutes. We're just moaning. It's like, what pleasure can you derive out of that? Why have you traveled 100, 120 miles, however how far it is, just to moan? And just people who will be constantly be negative, someone who is literally berating the referee for the entire 90 minutes, just shouting their heads off when actually the referee probably can't even hear them anyway. What does that serve? And shouting these things at people who are either not going to hear them or they're doing it to impress their friends. It's not right. But Claire is absolutely right as well. It needs to be action more than words. And I think probably there are ringleaders within these that other people will just copy the behaviour. So I think the real challenge for the club will be to identify those tiny handful of people and take action against those before that kind of that almost bacteria grows. I mean, other things.
Yeah, the only tiny point I want to disagree with you on is I don't think that you see on TV. It's social media, TikTok, and isn't it? And this is why obviously we're generally quite a quiet club anyway. But when people do start doing chants and it goes on, it's always something that has been heard elsewhere and then slightly adapted, which is a shame that we've never really had a huge amount of songs to fall back on. Although I did find it funny that they were singing about Carl Shorten the other day.
I blame Jared.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a good
I'd rather they sing about Carl Shorten than they sing about Romney.
Absolutely.
I
think I put I can't remember my wordings because I'm rubbish at this, but the excuse used over the years for different things is, well, I've paid my ticket, I've paid my money, I should be entitled to blah blah blah. And what I said is, yeah, absolutely, you should be entitled. But what doing what you want to do to make you happy doesn't mean you're allowed to make other people unhappy. There is a balance. Other people have paid their money as well. And yes, we all want a bit of atmosphere and a bit of chanting. It's not just a lot of people have said this. Oh yeah, there's a lot of young kids, blah blah blah. And I will be honest, I did assume it was some of the young ones, and I said, "Oh, was that our brats or theirs?" And she went, "Neither. It was an older person." I was like, "Oh, that makes it worse," because we've done stuff when we were young that if it ever came back in print now, I would absolutely be like, "No way, that wasn't me. I didn't say any of that." Like yourself, and I said to you, Claire, I go and I watch the game. I'm quite into that. A few weeks after I'd restarted this, Jenny was standing next to me, and I didn't notice until half time, and she'd only been on a guest for a couple of days before, and I'm like, oh my God, hello. But I'm sitting there literally just watching the football, and I'm not paying attention. But I think, as I've said before, need to start paying attention, start listening. All of us as adults, grown-ups, men need to be like, hang on, this is... I put it out there today. Every woman in the UK did not get together at one big meeting and say, tell you what, let's get this cracking story out there. Let's start saying this stuff's happening at football. Let's make it all up. Obviously, it's happening. People can't, just because you don't hear it doesn't mean it's not happening. You're not hearing it. But the only tiny little thing, and I think it probably will follow, is, as many people have said, it's going to be uncomfortable to report it at the moment, because you don't want to be going, oh, by the way, it's him. But hopefully there will be a number or something that we can use. But I'm sure we'll catch up with that. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. Fair play to the club. I'm not going to have it that we take away the moaning, Andy. Sorry. I'll have nothing to do in my house if I'm not allowed to moan. I'll have the three of them going, what do you do here now, Dad? But on the subject of moaning, not really. Let's talk about last night. One thing, didn't really realise the significance and the severity, until after the match. But it was a very depleted, chop change lineup. It's only when you start rattling off you think, oh, actually, you know what? That does happen. They did outplay us. They knocked the ball around, and I did think, even at 2-0, getting into like the last 70, I thought, you know what? If we just nick one, we could be the real horrible bastards again and get a draw out of this. But the guys were just knackered. But as I say, if you had, no disrespect to players that were on the pitch, but Tance, Louis, and Eastie on that pitch, possibly a different game. And then you add into that, you then got John, Rob, and Richie. And as Matt said afterwards, we've got Ali, who shouldn't have played, Kenny, who shouldn't have played, Kobe, who shouldn't have played, and Harry coming off the bench, who shouldn't have played. That's a significant amount of players. So with all that, it does kind of change that. How bad was it in the end? You guys were there.
Shall I go first this time?
Go on.
Yeah, there we go. I think it was. I think when we saw the team line up, it was obviously going to be a difficult night. Throwing Kobe in after being out for 3 months, something like that,
3 months or something,
straight into the starting lineup. Bearing in mind he has hardly trained. I know Harry's been in training a bit longer than Kobe, but he literally hardly trained. I knew that we were going to be in for a struggle. And yeah, no disrespect to Kobe whatsoever. He really struggled last night. He was exhausted. You could see with nowhere near match fitness. You could really see that Ali and Kenny probably wouldn't have played if we'd had other players available, because I think that's really where we lost the battle in the centre of midfield yesterday. It was, and then he named 5 people on the bench. One of them being Dundo. No disrespect to Dundo, because of course Dundo can play on his own and probably beat teams. But I think, again, to be fair, I think even if we had what we could class as a full strength side out there of fully fit players, I still think we would have had trouble getting a result yesterday. Bristol Rovers were a decent side. They were a bit shaky in defence. We didn't really capitalise on that. But if you haven't really got much of a midfield, it's always going to be difficult. We weren't getting much luck out of the wing play, and players, unfortunately, because you had those those three players and maybe a couple of others that were either exhausted or didn't really have the match fitness, other players were being drawn into those positions. So a number of times I saw Ben Goodliff basically covering for Kizzy, or Enzio and David Ajiboye almost covering for each other, both being on the same wings and stuff like that. I think that we really got pulled out of shape yesterday. And I think, in all fairness, we're probably lucky to have gone away with a 2-0 defeat. I think it could have been a lot more.
I think it could have been a lot more even in the first half. It was just they had so many opportunities when we really, really lucked out. I don't blame Dean for that second goal at all. I know there were some people behind us moaning about it, but I just genuinely think he should never have been in the position where he'd had to have come out of goal to do that. And as Andy said, if we weren't being pulled in all directions, then that probably wouldn't have happened. I find it hard, and I know this sounds really stupid, I find it really hard to be upset about it. Because, and it's like I said to you before, Mike, like, we're in League Two. Like, and I can't get upset about the fact that, we've gone unbeaten for quite a considerable amount of time now. It was going to come at some point. Looking at the lineup last night, probably the writing perhaps was on the wall for it. But it could have been a lot worse than it actually was. And I didn't feel devastated traveling home, but we'd come up and felt quite, as Andy said, like almost relieved that it could have been a lot more than it actually was. I did question, and I know this might be being a bit weird, but the Joey Barton saying, we needed a rugby referee. I did feel a little bit like maybe that had got into the psyche of the ref, because we didn't get consistently what they got. And this isn't me blaming the referee, because I just, it is what it is. But there was that little bit of like, he's being particularly hard on us, maybe because he thinks that we're more physical than we actually are. I mean, the irony of Mr. Barton saying such a thing is lost on any of us, because he's a charming chap. But
I don't want to defend him, but when I reread the article again, he was saying a lot about the possession and knocking it into touch, rather than actual physicalness. And I was like, I don't want to defend Joey Barton, so I stopped looking into it at that point. But sorry, I interrupted. Sorry.
No.
You were like, I've only got the replays. I wasn't there seeing Dean's goal. And the replays start as they're breaking upfield, not when all of our players are kind of going, that's a free kick or penalty. Matt said free kick, but everyone was saying penalty. So it kind of went from the moment after that. So I think, we had quite a few players, and I think you were saying, Andy, or Jared maybe was saying, it's everyone. So if all the players were upfield, there were people saying that potentially Ben was getting back to cover, or someone was getting back to cover. But when you watch it, it's like, would they have got there? Potentially, yes, if Dean had stayed, the guy wouldn't have been able to shoot from there, so maybe. But you can't go every single scenario. You've just got to make a split decision.
I think Dean made a snap decision. I think he could see. I mean, Kobe was obviously really off the pace. If you look at the replay, you can see how slow Kobe is running back. Goodliff is running towards him, but again, Goodliff is a brilliant defender, but he's not the paciest one. And the guy was going to beat him on pace. But we have nobody back in the middle, and I think it was a classic example of players playing out of position, but also as well, we were not playing to the whistle. If we played to the whistle, we would have had players back, and we didn't. Personally, the foul on David, I think it was a foul. It certainly looked like it's me. Whether it was a penalty or a free kick, kind of doesn't matter really. It was the fact that it happened and it wasn't given, and Matt was fuming, absolutely fuming about it. I've never seen. I mean, I mentioned it to Claire yesterday at the match. She's like, I've never ever seen him react like that. And for Matt to react like that, there has to be a pretty good reason. But we split wide open. But actually, I think their first goal was probably worse for us, because if you look at the replay of that. Kenny completely misses the ball. It's kind of like the ball goes past him. He's like, "Oh, is there a ball there? Really? What? And then Kizzy is not watching the man he should be watching, who they play it out to, and he scores. So actually, I think the first one, a lot of people are blaming Dean. Yeah, he was part of it, but he certainly wasn't the only one in there. I think the first goal was worse because I think as a defensive unit we did not defend that at all. And I think that was more of a mistake on our part than the second goal.
And Claire, what were your thoughts on the disallowed goal, the offside goal that they scored?
I'm more than happy to accept that it was offside. To be fair, I think I remember at the time saying that was, it wasn't offside. But yeah, you're always going to be like, well, we seem to be objecting quite strongly to it. The thing that baffled me was the linesman. I don't understand what took him so long to make that decision, because it looked like we'd almost talked him into it, which I don't think we had by any stretch of the imagination. But it was he just seemed very slow to raise.
I think there was some influence, not that we were making him change his mind, but I think one of our players pointed something out, and actually, had that guy not got the touch and just let it go in, that's a goal all day long. But because that guy touched it on the way in, I think our players were pointing out to the linesman, look who's celebrating. Look who's celebrating the goal. He was offside. And then the linesman was like, yes, he was offside. So, yeah, and that was actually from a Bristol Rovers fan who was saying, I think the linesman was suddenly realising who was celebrating the goal, and it wasn't the guy who hit the ball from way out. But yeah, luckily for us, he did get a little bit greedy and think about his goal bonus, and it was disallowed. The penalty, seeing it, I thought it was a penalty. If that was us at the other end and not given, you'd be going mad about it. But yeah, Dean was a hero at that point.
But I think actually that sums up Claire's point quite well about the refereeing decisions not having consistency. That was as soft, if not softer, than the foul on Adji Boy that wasn't given.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing. I think if it really was a well refereed game, then either both of those wouldn't have happened, or they both would have happened.
They both, exactly. Yeah. I mean, as I said last Sunday, and I said to you off air, we've got 50 points. I don't really care what happens from now on. Yes, I'd like to stay in the playoff spots, but actually, you know what? We've done what we set out to do. Wonder whether there is a certain amount of the energy has just suddenly gone, because when you're focused on a target, and you suddenly get there, there's this little sense of, I'm not saying. I don't
think that's the case, because I think that 50 points is a much more of a target to us than it is to them. I think consistently the players and Matt say they take each game. It's just every game as an individual thing. And I just think last night it's a coincidence that it happens that first game after we've hit the 50, but I don't think that that's what it was. I think we were just almost a victim of circumstance last night with regards to injuries and COVID and the people that ended up playing. So I don't think that's the case.
Fair enough. I'm going to use inverted commas around this, like the way that it's changed very quickly from Sutton United unbeaten in 12 to now Sutton United haven't won in 4. It's like, come on, man. that's outrageous. But after a defeat, and I haven't had to do one of these many times after a defeat, I'm still going to ask for player of the day. So it's difficult always when we've had a defeat. And I just want to clarify, this isn't player of the match. This is just player of the day. It can be for any reason you like. So just a couple of nominees. I've got some thoughts myself, but I'll hear your nominees anyway.
Mine, purely because he's been out for 4 months. Yesterday was 4 months to the day. Absolutely amazing to see him come back onto the pitch to put the captain's armband back on. For me, it's got to be Harry Buteman.
Lovely.
And I'm split between two. One is Dean, because actually he saved a penalty. That doesn't happen very often. And also there were a couple of other shots that he was directly responsible for not going in. I actually think, aside from that, he had a pretty good game. But I can't help but agree with Claire. It's Harry. I think part of the fact, obviously he's been out for 4 months, as Claire said, but actually when he came on the pitch, you wouldn't have known it. He had running around like a lunatic. It was when there was a real energy shift for us when Harry and Will Randall came on. Both of those were really kind of like, wow, if these two had that energy for more than the 15, 20 minutes that they were on for, it might have actually been a different story last night, because I think they were both. They probably did more in the short time they were on than some of the players that were on the pitch. And that's no disrespect to anyone who was on the pitch before them. So I think I'll probably go with Harry as well.
Excellent. Well, mine, to add to that, Scott, I like to have 4 for some reason. I don't know why I've settled on 4. Is similar reasons for Kobe, for getting through 60 odd minutes. Yes, he made a mistake for a penalty, but come on, man's not kicked the ball for months. And actually Ben as well, because with a new defensive partner, having to kind of not guide him through, but pull him along a little bit. So the 4 I'm going to do is Kobe, Ben Goodliff, Harry, and Dino. I had Dino on my list as well, because yes, he did give away a penalty. Goal. But what is it? Bristol Rovers, right? Crappy penalty at their place, crappy penalty at our place, and then this wonder goal / howler, depending on your viewpoint, at their place. Are they going to be our bogey side?
They're our new Maidenhead.
Yeah, I don't want to go there anymore, to be honest. Nothing good happens there. The first time I went, I got COVID. I'm not interested.
We don't have to go there anymore this season, which is wonderful, and hopefully, we'll see what happens whether we have to go there next season or not, because they might hit a sudden run of form to sneak into the playoffs. But we now look forward, and we're going to look forward to the weekend's match. And joining us for that is Jack from HUFC Podcast. Chat. Oh man, I knew I was going to say it wrong. HUFC Chat Podcast. Hello, Jack. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Keeping all right.
Very good. Very good. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about the podcast, so where people can listen and so on?
Yeah, so we're off quite a few platforms actually. So we're on Spotify, Anchor, Google, all of those types of things. We're based off Anchor, and that just distributes it everywhere. You can find us on Twitter at HFC Chat and Facebook, Hartlepool United News.
Yeah, as you all know, Anchor is the best one to be on, because that's what I'm on as well. So how's things been going for you guys this season?
Yeah, I mean, I was on a podcast the other week, and I was saying at the start of the season, you'll come in with like, oh, we'll just survive. We're happy with that. Then obviously we go on that run at home, and we're winning nearly every game. I've one of the best home records in the whole country, and people start to think, oh, can we actually, can we get up there and see where we go? And we've got Dave Challoner in charge, who's an incredible manager, and I won't say a bad word about him really. I'm gutted that he left, but he's gone to Stockport, and look at the job he's doing with them. So I think it just screams how good a manager he is, and I think that really did set us back when he left. It was a shock, the fact that he decided to go down a league. But if you look at the money that's offered, I mean, I'm pretty sure you do the same thing. So the season away from home, we were absolutely awful, like really, really poor. And we've started to play better away from home now, which is good. But it's one of them. I think Graham Lee's starting to grow on us. I think a lot of fans, are happy that he's at the club. I'm someone who's slowly starting to warm to him. I think he's starting to get us play some actually good football. And at the weekend, it was nice to see he wasn't as quiet and shy as he usually is, and said, even though that we beat Crawley, he said, that them boys will never play like that under us. And that's something you want to hear as a fan, because you just want to hear your team go out every week and give it 110% and play the best they can, and probably haven't been doing that as much. But expectations change throughout the season as football fans. A lot of people, 1 minute you're like, oh, you're flying, so everybody loves the club, and then suddenly you hit a bit of a rut in form, and people are like, well, I'm not sure whether I'm going to go and watch them, and all these things. And I think that had a negative impact, if I'm honest. But first season back in the Football League, I'm happy to survive. I don't want to be right at the bottom, but mid-table finish, I think it'd be really solid for me.
And obviously a Wembley trip.
Yes.
Us.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. I mean, I tweeted the other week, I said, I've promised myself I'll never ever go to Wembley until Pools get there. And I was, as I'm getting older, I'm 21 now, and I was starting to think, you know what, I might never see Wembley. So I'm just hoping that fingers crossed.
All three of us have just.
Everybody hates Jack now. For
that.
Yeah, well,
I'm getting old. I'm 21. Oh my god.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Fingers crossed we'll get to Wembley. It'd be good, I think, to see both us and yourselves there, because I think it just shows that perhaps there isn't such a gap between National League and League Two now, and it's great to see clubs that are proper football clubs, and it'd be brilliant to see us both at Wembley. So fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping that both Wigan and Rotherham have some really, really great success in the next few weeks. So they want to concentrate on promotion to the Championship and forget all about this little silly cup that no one really cares about. Yeah. So, so on to Saturday. Who should we be worried about?
It's an interesting one, this, because, I mean, one name that I'll say straight away, Luke Molineux. He's been on fire recently. He's a really solid player. Someone at the start of the season who looked like he might not be staying. And then he kind of said, look, I'll play wherever you want me. Give us a chance. And he's been banging in the goals, cutting in on his left. He loves to do that. Tom Crawford. I know that if any of my mates are watching this, they know how much I love him and I talk about him all the time. Under Chalner, he didn't get a sniff, and he's come in this season. He's been absolutely incredible. Like, he's a different class in midfield, so he's definitely one to watch. And then Tom Crawford just said that. Joe Gray up top, young lad. Really, like, this is another depressing thing when you get to 21 and your first teamers are like 18. He's brilliant. He's a really good player, and I think he's shown that he can play higher standard, definitely. So he's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, well, this is why we don't want Dundo to ever retire, because he's 41 today. Happy birthday, Dundo! And he makes us all feel very young because he's still running around. So we're like, yeah,
speak for yourself, right?
No, he still makes me feel young. I'm still old. He makes me feel young. I'll ask the other guys. To be fair, it's going to be a difficult one to answer. Who should they be looking out for? Because will we have 11 to put out?
Fingers crossed.
I mean, to be honest, at the moment, I mean, people will always go for kind of the default David Adjaboy, but he might be a star player on the day, he might be anonymous on the day. You can never quite tell. I think that's the thing. We don't really have a star player. I think that's part of the reason. I think why we're where we are is because we actually, it is. Players are interchangeable, and we're not relying on 2 or 3 players to almost drag us through. So I couldn't name one.
I'd have to agree with that. To be fair, I think there is something about this squad as a general kind of, however they choose to play, whoever kind of ends up in the lineup. Last night aside, it seems to be there isn't necessarily always just that one person that clinches it. Yeah,
I mean, David is kind of the main focus, but even in last night there was a few that he beat his man. You're like, that's it, and then what happened at the end, we're not really sure. But yeah, it is definitely a squad which you guys have played us quite a lot recently. There was quite a good game last season, if I remember, at our place. It was. I keep saying it was a really funny game because I think it was. It was our first game back after COVID, and we didn't. I remember it as it being really odd and quiet and strange, and it was on TV. And thinking to myself, if people are watching this live, they're going to be wondering what kind of place is this? Why aren't they celebrating? And it was only, I think I said this the other week there, it was when we went 2 up. That's when we suddenly realised, oh God, we've just done this. But we're very pleased that you joined us and not some of the other teams, because we didn't like them very much.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like nothing beats seeing Lucas Coverland's grin taken off his face after he equalised against us. I mean, of course he's playing for Port Vale now, but I cannot stand him. He's giving it big uns all game, like literally. And then obviously he scores and he comes and celebrates with us. Like, surely you celebrate with your own fans when you just equalise in the 95th minute. And I was thinking, here we go again, classic Pulls. We've messed this one up, and then we come through on penalties. And never forget moments like that, do you? It was my first promotion final that I've ever been to, and yeah, it was special, and seeing Coverland walk off that pitch was incredible. He certainly got a reception when we played at their place, and I'm sure he will on the 15th of April as well.
So you made us all dislike you with the "my getting old" thing, and now you're holding a petty grudge against a player. You've made us all love you again. That's exactly the kind of thing we like. Petty grudges is marvelous. Right, that's kind of it for tonight. There is one other thing I did say I would mention, although Claire's not wanting me to mention it. If you can support one of our guests, Joe. He will be at the Sound Lounge. Claire, when is it? It's in March, isn't it?
March the 4th.
March the 4th. So Joe will be at the Sound Lounge with a few other people. March the 4th. It says free entry, but I think there'll be someone on the door taking £1,000 or so, just so she can get a table.
You make it sound like I don't want people to go. I absolutely want people to go. I just really
just wants a table.
Table.
She just wants a table. But yeah, please go along and support Joe and listen to his music. It's wonderful. Andy, on music, when are you lot doing something new?
Hopefully soon. Soon. We're just trying to get back into rehearsing, and it was actually our 22nd birthday, so our band is older than Jack, which is a bit more worrying. So just trying to get everyone back together and shaking off the rust. We'll be less match fit than some of the Sutton players, I think, at the moment. So it's hopefully getting back on the wagon and seeing how it goes.
Excellent. Well, I keep getting emails, and I know I used to do the music thing on here, and I keep getting emails from different things about new music, and I keep listening to it, going, I do miss that a little bit, just listening to the different types of music. So, but I'm not going to do it because it was just took too long. Anyway, honestly, I'm finishing now. Thank you very much, guys, for your time and your input. It's been wonderful. Do go and make sure you listen to Jack's podcast, the HUFC Chat podcast. Yes, I got it right this time. Wonderful. Hopefully, it's a great game on Saturday. Safe travels to everyone who's going up there. Obviously, it's outside the M25, so it's a little bit outside of my remit. Do give me a shout on the socials.
Let's hope the match is on with the weather forecast.
Yes. Yes, it's not Dudley anymore. There's a new one as well, isn't it?
Last time I was on the podcast, it was the midweek before the Oldham game, which was postponed due to a storm. I hope I'm not setting a trend.
Oh, you're the jinx.
I usually am.
Yeah, on that podcast, I've just got to say, I'm not petty, but with my nephew Josh on that one, up until very recently, that was the most listened to podcast. And AB's one has jumped ahead of it, and I actually ran around the room celebrating and sent Josh a screenshot to say no longer talk. Sorry, but no, hit me up on any of the socials at Sutton Podcast. I do like hearing from you, or you can drop me an email, mike@suttonpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your time. See you later, guys. Cheers.
Take care, all.
United!